Hi everyone, and thank you for those who were able to join the call tonight. I'd like to sincerely apologise to those that obviously joined the call for the technical difficulties that we went and had. We apologise obviously if we wasted your time and it wasn't a worthwhile um, use of your time in terms of coming on the call. We all love technology. We all use technology every day in our lives, and we love it. But it's also when it's great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it can also be a huge pain. So what I've went and done is I'm redoing the call and recording myself with a presentation. So hopefully this will be the exact same presentation with the PowerPoint and the slides. And this is the recording that we'll share, along with obviously any of the questions that anybody's got in the frequently asked questions form that I went and put earlier on. Right. Again, thank you for joining the call tonight. The purpose of the call is bringing basically four of our regions, our Massachusetts North region, our Concord region, our Bedford region, and our New Hampshire South region out of Epping, bringing all the families together. And basically, we want to try and educate everybody, give everybody information about the upcoming age group changes that are going to be happening in the next few months. We want to make sure that everybody from the four different regions, all of the families and players, are getting the same message. So that's why we're doing it all together. And basically go through the different aspects and things that have went into why the changes have happened and what's to come moving forward in terms of the next steps with Seacoast United. All right. As I say, this is a recording of the call, so everybody will be receiving this. And then any questions that you've got, just as a reminder, hopefully everybody got the form that you can submit questions. So any questions that you don't feel has been answered or covered over this next 25, 30 minutes, please submit that. And then what we'll do is we'll compile a frequently asked questions document to try and cover all of the information. And then hopefully that will give you the best information possible. All right. So just going to dive into it now. Okay. So why is this change happening? So US soccer, or what is changing, and why is this changing? So US soccer, along with all governing bodies, announced that the US youth soccer landscape is going to be changing from a calendar year to a seasonal year. Your son or daughter is currently on a soccer team with Seacoast United, and it operates through a January 1st through a December 31st birthday format. The oldest player in your team is most likely a January birthday, and the youngest player on your team is probably a December birthday or close to. The new format that's going to be happening in August of this year, so the August of 2026, for the 26-27 season, that is going to start operating in an August 1 through a July 31 formation. So this will obviously be a shift in terms of how the makeup of teams are going to be. And as I say, we'll go through this as to why it's happening and different things with that. So taking a look back, many of you might have older sons or daughters that have been part of the youth soccer landscape, or family members that have been part of the landscape 10 years ago or more. And just looking at this slide, it's basically just taking you back a little bit. So before 2016, the youth soccer landscape in this country was all of the teams were made up of August 1 through July 31. Which is ironically where we're going back to. And that's where teams were. And US soccer back in 2016 wanted to start having the youth landscape across the country and the US follow the same format as what every country, for the most part in the world, and all world federations. So your Europe, your South America, different places like that, they follow in their youth landscapes and their national team setups a January 1 through December 31 format. So US Soccer decided back in 2016 that they would like to move the formation of teams, and they mandated that across the country, all youth soccer governing bodies, clubs, etc., were going to change starting the 2017-28 season. We're going to move to a January 1 through a December 31 formation of teams. So back then, we were going through basically what we're doing right now in the reverse order, where there was a lot of change, there was a lot of figuring out how we were going to move from one formation to a new formation. And for the last 6 or 7 years, the formation of the teams have been the birth year, January 1 through December 31. Rewind back or fast forward, however you want to look at, in 2025, US soccer and governing bodies basically started looking at the last sort of 5 or 6 years of how basically the feedback, how the fallout of the pros and cons to how changes had happened. And when they started looking at the feedback, they decided that there was a lot of pros to basically moving back to the seasonal formation of teams that August 1 through July 31. So in this past year, US Soccer basically and governing bodies said that at the start of the 2026 season, we're going to move back to basically the August 1 through July 31 season. All right. We hope that now that the changes went from from where it was to what it is right now, and it's going back to what it is, we hope that basically that's common sense will prevail, and US soccer and all governing bodies will decide this is the best way moving forward. And over the next sort of 15-20 minutes, I will discuss a lot of the benefits as to why this change is happening and what this change entails, and hopefully that helps you understand it a little bit more. So why is this change happening, right? So diving a little bit deeper. So some of the main goals that US Soccer and governing bodies want to make sure, they want to ensure that there is a similar format for all competitions across the country. A lot of things in youth soccer or youth sports across different parts of the country, different states operate differently, different clubs operate differently, different leagues operate differently. So all governing bodies and US Soccer basically says, oh, let's make sure that this is unified for the most part, and so that everybody in all competitions is following the same format, which is a good thing. It's a plus. They want to make sure that one of their goals and the vision is align soccer age groups with their school grades. So right now, a lot of the teams that you're on, your son or daughter is on, I'm sure that you've got basically the makeup of the roster is comprised of some kids in basically one grade and some kids in another grade. Most kids that are basically that sort of January through July, maybe August birthday, are in a higher grade, and then those kids in August or September through December, they're in a lower grade. So that's where right now there's that disparity in terms of playing on a soccer in the youth soccer landscape with your school grade. So they want to make sure that that's better aligned. They also want to make sure that more players are playing with their classmate peers. A couple of things that basically when the feedback that came out of when US soccer and governing bodies started looking back to the changes that happened in 2017-18, a couple of stats that basically that got them to this sort of point where 30% of females nationwide, when those change happened, stopped playing youth soccer, youth club soccer. And one of the reasons, or one of the driving reasons for that, was when they dug into trying to find out why that was happening, was that a lot of female players were used to playing in the old format, 2016 and below. They were used to playing basically more so with classmates, peers, and people of obviously that same school grade. Then when the change happened and it became that sort of birth year with the split year, split grades, that's what a lot of young female players decided that they weren't playing club soccer. Another part that the feedback that they got was that there was a nationwide drop-off in terms of players retaining playing from middle school into high school. So players that basically going from that 8th grade into 9th grade, there was a lot of players that decided to stop playing soccer when they went into 9th grade in high school. Again, goes back to weren't playing with their peers, weren't playing with their classmates, weren't playing with players in their same grade. So that was something that US Soccer taken in. So looking at some of these in terms of making sure the US Soccer want to increase participation in soccer as a whole across the country, and they also obviously want to retain players that are playing sports beyond those middle school years going into high school, which were big drivers for why this change is happening. So what do you need to know? Some of the things that you need to know. So firstly, this isn't a Seacoast United change. This isn't something that the Seacoast United staff or club or organisation have decided that we would like to change to this, or we're moving to this. This is something that's basically coming from above and governing bodies. So Seacoast United, like all clubs in this area and across the country, they're going to be moving to this change. Nothing is going to affect the current team that your son or daughter is on right now. Nothing's going to change in terms of February through June for the remainder of this soccer year that you're currently on, and that's something that we want to make sure as Seacoast United, we want to make sure that there is as less disruption as possible over the next few months, because we want to make sure that everybody's still having a good experience and everybody's still getting to play with their team in the current programme that they're on right now. The new formation, like I said, will start in August of 26-27, so later this year. And then all players are going to be looked at in a case-by-case situation. This isn't something that basically we're going to say, right, these are the new dates, we're going to rip off the band-aid and everybody's going to basically fall into whatever side they're going to fall into. We're going to look at everybody case by case, and I'll explain in a little bit of how that's going to work. But we want to make sure that all players case by case are more aligned with their school grade, and then also basically looking at what is best for their development. Those two buckets have got to be the sort of main drivers behind any decision, and hopefully that's something that you'll see moving forward. This isn't something that we've basically, as a staff, we've just thought about and we've started working on now, February 10th. This is something that as a staff and as an organisation, we've already been looking at back at the start of this soccer year. So back in August past, when this soccer year started, we already wanted to start basically getting ahead of it and starting to prepare and plan for next year. Again, one of our goals is we don't want to create any disruption in terms of what players and families are experiencing and doing for this current year. So there was that balance of, we don't want to basically start diving into next year too early, which again can cause some anxiety and can cause some nerves and uncertainty. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're planning and we're preparing ahead of next year, which we understand will bring a little bit of a disruption, but we want to try and minimise that as much as possible. So going into this slide here, so this is just basically, it's showing you for next year in terms of the 26-27 season, what basically each of the age groups entail, so what the format are. So if you're a U10 player next year, you're obviously playing 7v7 format. There's the birthdays in terms of what the formation of those rosters and teams will be for the U10 age group. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the school grade. That comes with an asterisk because we understand that not all players, there's going to be some unique situations. So, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but if you are, for the most part, an August 1 through an August 31 birthday, those players are definitely a unique situation, because those players, depending on what the cut-off for your school in terms of grades are, every town's different, every state's different. And when US Soccer and the governing bodies were making this change, the big debate was going to be, is it an August 1 start or is it a September 1 start? And across the country, everybody falls into different. Some are August 1, some are September 1. So they went with the August 1 because the August 1 decision, because it was the majority of the country, but they understand that it's not. There's also unique situations. So any players that are in that unique situation, August 1 through August 31, those players have been identified, and we're making sure, right, what's right for them in terms of aligning them with their school grade, but also making sure it's right for their development, and that's where conversations will happen with families. Yeah. So in terms of the pathways, so on the left-hand side of this slide is the pathways that Seacoast United offer. Both on the left-hand side is the boys, and on the right-hand side is the girls. On the girls' side for next year, all levels, all age groups, all clubs, all leagues, everybody will be moving to the new seasonal format. So everybody's going to be moving to that sort of August 1 through July 31 formation of teams. On the boys' side, it is slightly different. So again, we apologise about the technical difficulties earlier. Pete Decker, who's our MLS director and boys director, he explained on the call about the difference on the boys' side. So at the top of the pyramid for Seacoast United is the MLS Next Homegrown. And the MLS Next Homegrown is going to be the only level in the country that is going to stay on the current format of January 1 through December 31. The reason that is MLS Next look at that pathway as they want that as aligned as possible with world federations, creating players for national team setups, etc., etc. The second tier and below on the boys side, so the MLS Next Academy division, and then for the U11 and 12 Northeast Academy League, so that's the NEO teams, and then any other ages, levels, clubs, leagues on the boys side, all of them will move to the seasonal change of the birth year, going to the August 1 through July 31 formation. So that's the only grey area in terms of these changes. Everything else is going to basically be the same, but the one that is going to stay as the current format is the boys MLS Next Homegrown, which Seacoast United, that's the top of the boys pyramid that we offer. So going into player benefits, right? And I think that any time that there's basically change that happens, a lot of people will look at what are the negatives. Like, nobody likes change. Everybody likes, for the most part, things happening and being used to things that are happening. So, but what we want to try and highlight here are some of the benefits with these changes of how this will benefit some players, right? So we've talked a lot about the improved grade alignment, which will help players basically be more aligned with their school grades and peers, and then have that smoother transition from middle school to high school. The next point, in terms of the better developmental model, there's currently players that we've got in the club that are playing 11v11. So we might look at a U13 player right now that's playing 11v11, but they are on the younger side of the 11v11. In terms of that U13 age group. If the changes were to have happened in this current year, those players that are on the younger side of the U13 age group, so the 2013s right now, those players should be playing 9v9. But because of the current makeup of the format, they're playing 11v11. And I'm sure many of you as families and parents, you've probably watched a lot of soccer games, and you've seen, especially at that U13 age group, players transition to that 11v11 format. It's tough for players physically to make that jump to 11v11. Same size of field as what the players are playing in high school, college, big goals, things like that. So I think that this will definitely help players in those situations, where it will help them play in 7v7 format for a little bit longer. It will help them play 9v9 format for a little bit longer, so that by the time that they get to that 11v11 format with the new changes, developmentally they'll be in a much better position, and physically they'll be in a much better position to cope with those demands. The third point on there, no more trap players. So this might be something that you're aware of, or you've heard that term in terms of trap players. So technically, a trap player is a player that in their 8th grade, when they're in 8th grade, so the current 2011 age groups as an example, if you're an 8th grade player in the 2011 age group, this past fall, the 2011 age group is classed as the high school, the U15 age group. So those 8th grade players that are 2011 were unable to play with their Seacoast United team in the fall, because that didn't start till November, because it's comprised of players in 9th grade that were playing high school soccer in the fall. So those 8th graders that are 2011 this past fall, they had to sit out until November, and then when everybody comes back, they start off in November. So that's not ideal in terms of development. It's not ideal for players in terms of that situation. And then also, you fast forward a couple of years, those same players end up falling into that trap situation when they're in their junior year. So the current 2008 the U19 age group, which is comprised of 2008/2007 players, there's currently players that are 2008 juniors who are on a U19 team playing on a team that's maybe comprised of mostly seniors. So then they end up having to play 2 years at the U19 age group, which has its complications when you go to the bottom point, which is the better format for college recruitment. So currently right now, like I said earlier, there's players from 2 different grades. So if players that are in those sort of prime college recruitment age groups, so if you're a U16 or a U17 player right now and you're going to showcases or an event, college coaches and schools are looking at U16s, and they might be like, okay, some players are freshmen, some players are sophomores. They might be looking at a U17 team right now. Some players are sophomores, some players are juniors. So that has complications in how that operates as well. So this will help in terms of players being mostly aligned with their grade, which will help obviously from the college recruitment standpoint. And then that fourth point, in terms of some players can repeat. that is a situation where some players get the opportunity where if you are a U13 player right now and you're on that younger side, so maybe a September, October, November, December birthday, you are going to fall into that opportunity where you are going to play U13 soccer again in the U13 age group again next year. That, in our opinion, is a huge bonus developmentally, because now players, instead of always playing catch up and being on that younger side, now they've got that opportunity to basically be a little bit ahead of the curve, and it will help them from a physical demand, a technical demand, and it will help them with their long-term development. So that's some of the benefits that we see with the changes. So going into a Seacoast United approach, so like I said earlier on, this process and preparation started, has been going on for the current year since August. Right? Okay, this isn't something that we're just now all of a sudden thinking about. We've looked at steps here that will open up a lot of family and player conversations. This isn't something that we're just going to throw on you and then players and families have to deal with it. We want to make sure that we identify all of the players in the current rosters and put them into the new format. But then, like I said, look at any of those unique players that have got those birthdays, especially those August 1 through August 31 birthdays, and then look at what's best for them in terms of developmentally, and then also from their school grade to align with that. And then, as I say, we'll treat all players case by case. And then as we go into the sort of new format, we want to make sure that any players that are in that unique position, we want to talk to the player and the family. Right? Okay, this is what we think that would be good for you, but we understand there's a difference in terms of your grade, and some of those decisions might be different on the younger side versus the older side. But those are all conversations that we'll have with families and players. So next steps for Seacoast United, right, in terms of moving forward. Over the course of the next week, like I said, and this would have been said on the call, we would share the recording and the slide deck, which we're doing now as a sort of take two moment. And again, we apologise for the technical difficulties that happened on that call. So you now have this. We will also be sharing the frequently asked questions that anybody had submitted, so that we can cover all areas if there's any uncertainty or things that we didn't cover. And then also what we're going to be pushing out is we've looked at the calendar year, so trying to provide as less disruption as possible to this current year. We've identified a week in the upcoming schedule where we think that this might be an ideal time to start bringing players and teams together in the new age group changes to look ahead to next year. And this is something that we'll be sharing with you over the course of the next week, that the week of March 30th. So the week of March 30th is going to be the week leading into Easter. For the most part, no teams are playing in any games, league games, tournaments over that Easter weekend. So we're going to use that March 30th week and putting together a schedule where we're going to invite players into age group get-togethers within the new age group format, and this will be the next step in terms of how we try and start moving towards the formation of the new age group changes going into next year. One thing that we want to make sure that we are communicating and we are being transparent about is, in previous years we would usually start communicating team selections for the following year around about late May, June time when we do the tryout process. We are going to be communicating the selection of team placements a little bit earlier in the spring, and we want to make the reason we want to do this is, one, we want to be making sure that we're planned and prepared for next year, but also for you guys as players and families, that you know where that you're going to sit next year, and you're not waiting until that June timeframe. We will also still be running the traditional June tryout process. However, this will be a little bit more supplemental. So even though we're basically going to be doing these get-togethers in March, end of March going into April, and then some other dates that will be sprinkled in the spring season, in addition to your current training sessions and games that you're doing for the current year. And then in June, we'll do a smaller version of the traditional tryouts as a supplemental version to create the teams for next year. So looking forward, like I said, I think I've said it a couple of times already. Nobody likes change. We understand that, but hopefully we, like you guys as families and players, take the change out of the equation. We hope that you see that there's a lot of value to Seacoast United, regardless of any change that are coming. We want to make sure that we help as much as possible. Is there going to be little bits of disruption here and there? Yes, but we want to try and make this as seamless as possible and help everybody moving forward. We hope that you trust us, and I'm sure you hear that a lot of times, like, can you trust us in terms of what we do? But we want to make sure that we're doing what's right for every single player in the club in terms of making sure they're more aligned with their school grade for the long term, and then obviously for their development for the long term as well. And then focus on the longer term benefits, some of those that we touched on, instead of just that short term shuffle, which again might not be ideal for some of you in the short term, but hopefully if you look beyond that, you'll see the benefits in the long term, whether that's playing with players in your grade, college recruitment process, no more trap player situation, and things like that. So contact information here. So as I say, these are all the contacts for all the 4 regions, boys and girls. For the most part, this is where the information and the follow-up information will be coming from. So you can expect to come there. But if you have any questions that you don't put in the form that we went and sent, you feel free to reach out to these guys as well, and they'll help you as we move forward. Right. So again, thank you again for everybody that came on the call tonight or attempted to come on the call tonight. I can't apologise enough in terms of the technical difficulties, and we hope that this message and this presentation and video gets to everybody now, and it's a little bit more easier for you to go through. The last thing that I'll say, or the last couple of things that I'll say, is that as we move through the next few months, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please reach out to us. We fully understand that there's going to be a lot of individual family conversations and player conversations. We are here to help. We're here to try and make this as easy as possible for all families, so that as we get through the next few months, we can look forward to the following year and the years to come. I'd like to wish everybody all the success and good luck this spring season with your current team. If you've got tournaments coming up, I know we've went through a sort of cold patch of weather, and hopefully in the next few weeks things will start getting a little bit milder, and we can start looking to get back outside. So thank you again for your time, and good luck this season.